Oh God, I've needed you so badly. I can't take a week away from you. Yeah, boy, this is what the media loves. Just Democrats in disarray. And as President Biden said yesterday, it's two. We could unite the moderate and progressive wings if it were for two people. It's two people. Democrats are not in disarray. Two people are out of step, Eric, not just with Democrats, with 70% of the American people on all of these programs.
The New Yorkers said there's a civil war in the Democratic Party. Yeah, I just put up a column at PressRun this morning about chaos and civil war. Look, obviously everyone knew the press was going to do this because they invent Dems in disarray. And here on the outside looking in, it does look chaotic. And there was a reason it was the opening skit on SNL over the weekend, because it does look like there's lots of, warring factions and things like that. But if you cover politics for a living, you ought to be able to see what's actually going on, and you ought to be able to explain to readers and viewers what's actually going on. And, the New York Times completely lost its mind on Friday, saying that delayed vote was humiliating for Biden and Democrats, and basically it was a calamity for his entire administration. But that deadline was completely man-made and artificial and optimistic, and it didn't happen, and nobody cares. It wasn't like the debt ceiling, and there was a consequence for pushing that vote back. The press is not used to progressives wielding power.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're used to women of color kind of driving these tough negotiations.
That's right.
And so they're pitting the progressives as in revolt and things like that. And actually they're on the exact same page with the White House. And the White House made it clear they're not happy with the moderates, and they're not happy with the two obstructionists in the Senate. So bottom line, the press kind of got this wrong in a hyper ventilating, predictable way.
Well, for perspective, you're always the only one almost that gives us the perspective. You just said, reminder, Trump's GOP basically passed one bill in 4 years, and the press portrayed him as savvy. I mean, as everybody said, this is complex stuff, and it takes time. And it's just, you're right that this, sort of sports coverage of it is just, it's annoying. It really is, isn't it?
Well, a real quick thing is, the press got addicted to the Trump years of just 5 different stories a day, every day for 1,200 days. And the news cycle was so condensed and so hysterical for often good reasons, because he was a madman. And you go fast forward to Biden, and they got stuck with covering this infrastructure bill for 6 months. They're bored out of their minds. So finally they see some drama. And instead of covering it kind of responsibly, they tried to go back to the Trump era. How would we cover this if this were a scandal? How would we breathlessly deal with an infrastructure, which, as you said, a very complicated one. It's one of the most transformative pieces of legislation that's ever been passed. It will transform this country in innumerable ways, which is another point. The contents are completely ignored, right? If I were an everyday news consumer, I would literally have no idea where they're in these bills. Oh, they're going to build roads and bridges? Okay, that's like 1% of what these bills would do.
Right. Well, I mean, you also tweeted, by the way, it's absurd, the premise the media keeps pushing, that the failure to pass infrastructure bill will doom Democrats in the midterms 13 months from now. In 2018, the press was sure the border caravans would doom Democrats 13 days before the midterms, and that theory was a total bust. I mean, you heard the poll I just read. That, Democrats are way up in the polling. Not that, we don't have to turn out like crazy between all this voter suppression and all this other stuff. But, you're right. In all this Dems and disarray stuff, you go, all of the things in these bills are wildly popular with the American people. That's why Republicans are terrified it's going to pass, right?
And look what happened with the COVID relief bill. 80% public support. They couldn't get one Republican vote. There was a reporter at the White House press briefing last week asked Jen Psaki, "Well, if this bill's so popular, how come you can't get support?" And it's just like, what are we doing? That is the game right there, except you're missing what the importance of that fact is, that this wildly popular bill cannot get much Republican support. But again, it goes back to this idea that there needs to be drama, there needs to be good guys, there needs to be villains, there needs to be warring factions. Can't there just be legislation that's being negotiated? Right. I mean, why do we have to put everything on steroids? And why do Republicans get to be disappeared? I pointed out in my piece, I linked to a long CNN piece late last week on the state of negotiations. The word Republican was not typed once. They don't exist. They have no say. The reason this is so difficult to pass is because Republicans have essentially walked away from bipartisan support for an infrastructure bill, which has always been bipartisan.
And there's 0% coverage of the fact that they're willing to blow up the entire faith and credit of the United States of America. Again, it's just like nothing. Their obstructionism is just treated as normal now. Just
normal. Yeah. 10 years ago, when the Tea Party faction came in, and there was a part of that Republican Party that actually wanted to blow up the debt ceiling and wanted the United States to default. The coverage was kind of like, oh my God, who are these people? Who would want to do that? Now the entire Republican Party, led by the Senate Majority Leader, has adopted that, and it basically told Democrats, we don't care if you blow up the economy. And it's just all assumed. It's all the starting point. It's never really addressed. It's not radical obstructionism. It's just Republicans, being super savvy. Who wouldn't want to blow up the economy if you were the minority party? That's the starting point from all the coverage.